The Chord Whisperer.
Hello, welcome back to the Chord Whisperer with me, Joe. That's me. So, going to spend a little bit of time just looking at what a C chord chart is and why it helps me so much in the way that I see music and try and explain music to myself mainly. There are a load of things on my website, sort of animated tutorial things that I did years ago, but this is the first time I've done one to camera. And my props are a piece of paper and a pencil, and I didn't have a ruler, so I've made a straight edge. And that's it. Partly what I want to get across is the simplicity of the system and what it does for me. So, tiny bit of history. There was a piece of Bach. I talk about Bach a lot. Maybe see the video that's out there or going to be out there soon about the well-tempered clavier. There was a piece of Bach and I wanted to know what was going on with the chords and the harmony in that piece, as many people do when they're playing pieces. It's like, where have we started? Where does it finish? What happens in the middle? So I wrote the chords down. I can't remember what piece it is, or was. So let's write down a chord sequence. Like any chord sequence in the world is used somewhere, right, in some form. So let's say that this chord sequence, let's do it in C. Let's say that it started with C. We finish on a C. There's a bit, I'm sure it could be handled by Bach in a lovely expressive way. Excuse me. Let's hear what that sounds like first. I'm just going to play the chords. How do we go about understanding the harmonic movement of this chord sequence that we've pulled out of a piece? Well, we can do a number of existing analysis on these chords. We can call the C number 1 because it starts on C, finishes on C. Looks like this piece is in the key of C. Not a 7 on the 1. There is the chord sequence in Roman numerals. The advantage of that being, it doesn't matter what key this is in, we can see the sort of harmonic movement in terms of, irregardless of key. So if this same harmonic sequence happened later on in the piece in a different key or in a different song, we'd be like, oh, that's the same one. However, that, to me, is fairly impenetrable. When I see flat 7/7s and flat 3s and 3 minors, I can dig into this a little bit and find out what it means, and I can see certain patterns and things that are familiar, secondary dominance and tertiary dominance and things like that. Nothing comes out of me, and nothing came out of me when I did that with the piece of Bach that I was trying to analyse. So then I thought, well, we all know what to do. We just go to the circle of fifths and we look at this on a circle of fifths. Of course. Why didn't we do this first? Good circle. Oh, we're in C, so C at the top is going to make complete sense to us. We're in C major, so here is a good circle of fifths in E major. I'm going to put all these as capitals. And then round this way we've got F. We know we're going to use a B flat and an E flat. And I'll put the others in even though we're not going to use them. Classic circle of fifths. And let's look at the movement here. C, F, G, C. Great, straight away I can sort of see, okay, we are in a nice little tight harmonic family. We know if we know a certain amount about the circle of fifths, we could sort of think, well, that is the area of chords that we're sort of expecting, and anything outside of here is getting a little bit more exotic, and A flat and E flat, probably not expecting anything over there. C, F, G, C, A half diminished over here, like that, then D, that looks good, and then we're jumping over to B flat, and then we're going down to E flat, and then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, and we know, by the way, that music tends to like to do this, tends to like to go that way around. I'm in D, and then I go to B flat 7 and E flat there next to each other, and then E, that's over there, E minor, and then I'm at A. I used A before, D I used before, so then that's all going back home. I mean, I'm a little better off, but not a lot. That is the point I got to, where I was like, I want to see into this chord sequence. I want to see how it works. I want to see what this movement is, that it's here somewhere. I just can't see what it is. There's an amazing circle of fifths that John Coltrane came up with or found or drew that is out there. And it is a thing of beauty and of great complexity. And this is what I find with the circle of fifths. You know, we put the relative minors on, we put the key signatures on, we put the related keys and all that and the harmonic movement on, and it quickly becomes something that looks more like some kind of incantation than anything musical. So I was like, well, let's at least try and see what these are in the right order. So maybe like put this on a time axis, and this is where everything changed for me. So it's like, okay, well, if we have a time axis, then that means this axis has to be the chord axis. And so let's say that C is in the middle because that is our home key. And then let's draw the chord axis up here, and then C is in the middle, G is there, D is there, A, E, B, we could put F sharp at the top there, and then we can go down this way, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, and if we want to put G flat there, it's the same thing as F sharp. We have cut the circle of fifths. We've cut it here, and we've unfolded it into a line. And now, if we want to, we can put bar lines in. I'm not going to actually do that now. And then we can plot this harmony. This chord sequence we can plot. C. I had a bunch of symbols that I can't remember if I came up with them at the start, but I used a square for a major chord. I used a diamond for a minor chord, and then the standard notation for diminished and half diminished, like that. And then I'd use the standard one for major 7 and minor 7, but actually as time went on I found out I didn't really need much more. But a really useful one actually was a dominant 7th, which I have used a filled in square like that because it's sort of a major chord with a bit added. So that is a dominant 7th symbol, and if these symbols were the key, then I would fill them in. So if it was a square on the tonic, filled in square on C. That's my first chord. Then I have F minor, that's here. Then I have G7, that's my filled in square, like that. And then I go back to C. That's the tonic, it's filled in. Then I had A half diminished, that's up here, so we could put in a half diminished there. Then a D7, that's my filled in square. And then a B flat 7, ooh, odd, exotic down here, that's a 7th chord as well. That then goes to E flat. That's just E flat major. That's here. It's not filled in because it's not the tonic. Then E minor. Goodness me. Okay, up here to E minor. That's supposed to be a diamond. That's fine. And then A7, D7, G7. Gone a little bit off my lines here. That's fine. And C. Okay, I have something. I can see some patterns here. Definitely. But then what I did, let's join them up with lines. Lines just gives a little bit of shape. As time went on, I've realised a dominant seventh falling a fifth, and give it a little arrow. It shows that that's doing something nice and pleasing musically. There it is again. A little arrow there. Goodness me, what is that? That joined up, that's an arrow, that's an arrow, and that's an arrow. Aha! Now, the interesting thing that happened when I got this chord sequence into this place is this told me some things that were interesting that I hadn't seen here. 3 times the music jumps up and then falls down again. Then it does it once down here, really weirdly, then does it a huge leap, and then it falls down back to the start again. Now that doesn't mean anything in terms of the actual music that you're hearing, but it certainly means something in terms of the harmonic movement. I mean, here are some things that stand out visually that may not have stood out so much here. What is E flat to E minor? It looks exotic, and also look at this lovely ramp back down again. So straight away I could identify some things visually without any need to interpret this other than just visual patterns, and then take it back to the chord sequence and think, well, what's going on there? That looks unusual. And sure enough, things that look unusual here turn out to be unusual in music, and things that look nice and organised here turn out to be kind of quite organised in terms of the chord progression and the harmony. I then spent many hours and many days, weeks, months and years analysing music and putting it into charts and seeing what came up. And what have I learned? Really, it has changed the entire way that I think about harmony and chords now. I can't really think of a chord progression like this now without starting to see the shapes and thinking about things jumping up and falling back down. I mean, this jumping up and falling back down, it just happens all the time. There's a sort of a gravity to this, a nice pleasing gravity. Put some energy in to get up, fall back down. It can help us see all sorts of mechanics that are going on in chord patterns, like establishment of key, modulation, harmonic sequences and series, use of diminished chords, use of seventh chords, and to be honest, that to me makes a lot more sense than that. I wasn't sure what I'd unlocked, and I wasn't sure if it was going to give me any truths, but as I say, it now has fundamentally changed the way that I think about music, and I would like it to fundamentally change the way you can see and you can think about music as well, albeit with a little bit of help from me. So let's have a quick look at a random Seechord chart. I might put it up on the screen, but these are ones that I've done of some Bach. You might have seen in other videos. These are actually 4 separate pieces. Now, this looks admittedly like fairly incomprehensible nonsense and nothing to do with music anymore. It's like a heart rate monitor. What it is an entire piece, in this case a Bach Prelude, Book 2, number 21 in B flat. It's the entire graph of the chord progression and the harmony of that piece in one go. Book 2, Prelude 2. Let's just remind ourselves what that sounds like. Book 2, Prelude 2. I'm not going to play the whole thing. Not going to play the whole thing and excuse the wrong notes. So that's that prelude. What can I see by looking at the music? Let's bring that over here. By looking at the music, I can see that it's in C minor. It finishes in C minor. I can see a little perfect cadence at the end, a G7 and a C, and probably a perfect cadence here. And then, I can see some sequences in the music. That looks like a sequence to me. It's repeated a few times. Bach repeats things a lot. Let's not worry too much about the fact it's Bach or what it is. What we're looking at is, can that chart tell us anything straight away, even if we're not familiar with this piece of music, that we can then take to the music and be like, okay, I see what's going on. Here it is. We are dancing around 1s, 4s and 5s, so the first few bars. Then we have, that's odd. We have an A flat. In fact, we're spending a lot of time here on A flat major and E flat major. This whole section. In fact, look at the C minor, only makes a sort of fleeting appearance, really, until the end. So it looks to me like we're in C minor and then we're not in C minor until right near the end. We're more in A flat major and E flat major. Right, that's not something that I would necessarily know intuitively. C minor, A flat major, they're very closely related. C minor, E flat major, very closely related. E flat major would be normally called the relative major of C minor. Personally, I think every minor has two relative majors. C minor and A flat major are so closely related. Why shouldn't they be a relative major? So it looks to me like we have a modulation into A flat. We have a modulation into E flat. How is that modulation handled? I can see a ton of these dominant seventh chords falling to E flat. And so let's see what it sounds like. I have a larger version. Maybe I'll put that in set so you can see what's going on. Where it's roughly sort of bar 12 or something. We're looking for a flat chord. It's sort of suggested. Then we jump back to C minor, and then it's really dug in a bit more. But actually, it looks like maybe that A flat isn't a modulation. Maybe the modulation is actually into E flat. What is going on? We're in C minor. Still sort of in C minor here. D flat 7. Oh, there's our modulation into E flat. And that will be here. And then we get the same pattern as we did at the start, albeit a little neater. Still E flat. Now, of course, we can know that. We know that by playing the music. We know that by looking at the music. We could know that by writing out the chords. But here, it just lends itself so quickly to being able to identify that. That is what Seechord does for me. It allows me to see harmony and see the story of harmony, the story of chords in a piece, the journey that it goes on, how conventional it is, what rules there are within this piece, and what global rules there are that are being applied in this piece. How it suddenly allows us to ask a lot of questions that we couldn't even ask before. How often do major keys stay in the major keys? How exotic is the movement of harmony away in most major keys in Bach, or in the whole of classical music, or in pop, or in jazz, or in a particular song? Do minor keys stay in minor keys? Do they go to major? So many questions that, of course, we could ask before, but the answers were hidden deep in these chord sequences. And every music theory book that I've read that goes into really great detail about chords, you have to be very conversant in this language. Not just conversant in that language, but conversant in interpreting and drawing meaning out of this. And I want to make that easier for everybody. I want you to be able to see what I can see when I look at that, the story of music, the x-ray of a piece of music. When we see a beautiful fifths progression, it looks beautiful on the page. When we see a beautiful reverse fifths, it goes up through the fifths. Like, we can see it. Oh, look at this. It's lovely. Oh, it jumps up and then it jumps down and then it falls back down and jumps up, and it's like, oh, what are these chords? They're diminished chords. Like, so much. I could go on about it forever, and hopefully I will. That is how the system works. I hope that makes sense to you. Please do comment and ask me questions about it, and I will, over time, do a series of videos about some basics of harmony that can be seen for the first time in this way. Thank you very much.